Hi, I'm Dick Mills. What we're going to be working on during the session is some specific areas within the delivery that many of you have told me you're having problems really understanding. So what I wanted to do is go into several different areas and spend some time so that when we're done with this session, you're going to know how to go about working on them, you're going to know how they look, and exactly what kind of drills you can do to fix these areas of your mechanics. Basically, most mechanical problems occur because of, number one, poor arm action. An arm action being from the time you break your hands until you get to release. Number two, poor balance and body control. Not keeping yourself in a good balanced position, in a good compact position. Number three, poor body and arm alignment. Okay, remember we talked about keeping your body moving along that midline. I talk about that railroad track, a single railroad track going from the ball of the pitcher's foot right to the rubber, and making sure that you're working your body along that railroad track. Another area, and a big one, is poor weight distribution and poor weight transfer. And the other one is inconsistent or an improper landing. So those are some of the areas that I'm going to be talking about in this session. And we're going to put some time in so that you really understand this fully. Remember something, when we're done with this, I want you to go back and I want you to work on these areas. Take the time to work on them, whether it's off season, during the season. Set some time aside and try to master your mechanics. So let's get in and let's go to the first area we're going to talk about, and that's going to be poor weight distribution and poor weight transfer. Okay, let's talk about weight distribution and weight transfer. What we're really talking about here is how to keep your weight back. If you go into any major league bullpen, you're going to hear pitching coaches talk about keep your weight back, keep your weight back. What exactly does that mean? How do you do it? And what are the benefits to keeping your weight back? Well, one of the biggest benefits to keeping your weight back and having good weight distribution throughout your delivery is that you're going to get yourself in a power position and you're going to be able to throw the ball harder. One of the biggest mechanical faults you'll see throughout pitching at every level, and of course the further you come down in levels, the more you're going to see it, and that's rushing the delivery. And rushing the delivery means you're simply getting your body out ahead of your arm. And if you get your body out ahead of your arm, you're not going to be able to throw with as much power as you're capable. And the other thing is you're going to be putting a lot of stress on your arm. So keeping your weight back has a tremendous benefit in generating more power. And people ask me all the time, boy, how do you add velocity? I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of this session, about how you can add that 3 to 5 miles to your fastball. And this is one area right here that you should really concentrate on fully. This is an area when you videotape a pitcher, you're going to be able to see right off the bat whether he's keeping his weight back or not. And if he's not, you know that that pitcher is capable of maybe throwing harder. So that's what we're going to work on right now. Now, what we want to do is get ourselves in the high cock position. Let me grab my glove. And we're going to get ourselves in the high cock position. I want to show you this from the side because you're going to see it a lot better from the side. So if you want to see whether a pitcher is keeping his weight back or not, you've got to tape him from a side angle. If it's a right-handed pitcher, you're going to tape him from third base. A left-hander, you're going to tape him from first base. I've been doing a lot of video analysis of Major League pitchers over this past year. I've watched Nolan Ryan a lot of times, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, Steve Avery, John Schmaltz. A lot of those power pitchers to see exactly what they do and what techniques they use to keep their weight back. And that's what I want to show you right now. What we want to do is start in the high cock position. And we simply want to be right here. Now, at what point, it's really important to understand, at what point do we get our weight back? At what point does the weight get shifted back before we start moving forward? And I was watching Nolan Ryan's delivery just recently, just over this past week, and one of the things I noticed was, and you've heard it said that, boy, Nolan Ryan threw hard because he had a high leg lift. It's really not true. Now, the high leg lift may have resulted in him doing something that may have contributed to him keeping his weight back. But lifting your leg up high does not necessarily contribute to velocity. In fact, I don't see how it can. There's a guy that throws about 100 miles an hour for the Marlins, and he doesn't hardly even lift his leg. I mean, it's just, boom, he just gets the leg right about here, and boy, he's going forward. So having a high leg lift doesn't necessarily create velocity. Lifting the leg up high may cause you to get into a good weight distribution, a good weight transfer position. But I want to show you right now what it looks like. Now, the point in the delivery where we get our weight back is coming from our balance point down. So in other words, when a pitcher hits his balance point right here, from here, as soon as his leg starts down, at this point is when he wants to start getting his weight back. But how does he do that? Well, you've heard stay tall in your delivery, okay? Now, obviously, you can't stay tall all the way through the delivery. You want to be tall here, but what happens when your leg comes down, when your leg starts down, this back leg has to be soft, and you've got to get some knee flexion in your back leg. This is so important. And the other thing is, when you're working on this, work on this stuff slow. Slow everything down so you can feel it. And you're going to understand something, that in order to have good power, in order to have good weight distribution, good weight transfer, you've got to have a strong lower body. You've got to have, from this part of your body down, better be in good shape. And we can talk about that later, about conditioning. But you'll find out, pitchers that are weak in the lower body have a tough time keeping their weight back, because it does require strength to keep your weight back before you get out there too quick. So the point in the delivery when we think about keeping our weight back is when our lift leg starts down. So when the lift leg starts down, at this point, when the lead leg gets out, notice the knee flexion, okay? So right here, the leg starts down and out, and notice right here where I am. I've got my weight back, and the reason I have my weight back is because I got some knee flexion. You can't keep your weight back unless you get some knee flexion there. So when the leg comes down and starts out, there's where we get to keep our weight back. You can throw hard from this position right here. Now, this has got nothing to do with pushing off the rubber. Okay, I can throw the ball hard from this flat surface right here. Somebody needs to tell me how you throw or push off the rubber when you're on a flat surface. You really can't do it. One of the other things I'm going to suggest you do, especially when you're on a mound that maybe is not manicured like a major league mound, or even this mound out right here, pretty well manicured for a high school ball field. When you go out to that mound, if you want to make sure that you're in a good balanced position, that you're able to get good body control, make sure the area in front of the mound is flat. The mound may not be manicured well. If you got a hole there, try to dig that hole out so at least you have a flat surface. And I'm not talking about a place where you can push off from. So again, your weight transfer happens as your lead leg starts down and your lead foot starts out. So it's going to look like this right here. Boom. At this point right here, This is where we start keeping our weight back. Now where's my weight? I got all my weight on the ball of my foot going right down into the ground, and I'm staying back. Now, a position to get yourself in so you can really feel this is get yourself with all your weight over the posting leg, all the weight over the ball of your foot right here, but get your lead leg out with your toe just touching the ground. Put yourself in this position and just hang here for just a couple of seconds. And you know what you're going to feel? You're going to feel tremendous flex going right here to these quadriceps. And it's going to start, you know, cramping up a little bit. And what does that tell you? It tells you you need to have strong legs in order to keep your weight back. So young pitchers that don't do any conditioning, then they're going to have a tough time doing this. That's why it's so important to do the plyometrics. That's why it's so important to do the medicine ball. That's why it's important to do squats, lunges. Work your lower body. That's really important. So get yourself in this position right here, weight over the ball of the foot, and get your toe out here. Now remember, we're going to come from the leg being up, okay? Remember, we want to keep the foot under the leg before we start forward. This is fine right here, but make sure you keep your weight over the ball of your foot, okay? But before you start forward and let this leg down, make sure the foot comes under the knee. So again, we're going to come from here, and now as this leg starts down, that's when we get the flexion right there on our knee. Now we're going to start forward. In watching Nolan Ryan on tape this past week, one of the things I noticed, and I can't lift my leg up as high as he does, but he takes that knee and it just about comes up here. If I did that right now, I know I'd pull something. But I noticed that he lifted his leg up here, okay? And I can't do it, but he's way up here. Now, what I noticed was he started the leg down, he got the weight back, he's right here, and I noticed that his hip barely moved out until his lead foot was almost at ground level, okay? He was right here before he started to move out. So the longer you can keep your weight back and get this lead foot down in a good alignment position, okay, this is where you're going to get your power, okay, because when you move out to landing, you're going to be in that position where your head's going to be in the center of that triangle right there. Now, another pitcher who used to use, he had a checkpoint in his delivery. Sandy Koufax was a pitcher. One of the checkpoints in his delivery was he would work on seeing how long he could move out before his foot hit the ground. Now that sounds like maybe he was trying to get a long stride. That's not what he meant. What he meant was, he meant that the longer he could keep the foot going forward before he hit, the longer he would keep his weight back on his back leg. And that's so important. Now, a drill that you can do to work on keeping your weight back, this is a drill that requires, it's going to get your leg where you're going to feel this quadricep muscle. And what you can do is get some flexion on the back leg and simply work on, get out here with the toe. Now, take the toe and just see how far out you can go before you have to, you know, move out. You can only keep your weight back so long. Eventually, gravity's going to win out and, you know, it's going to happen where you're going to have to go forward. But if you can do this drill, this is going to get you to feel what keeping your weight back is. And just start just like this. Flexion here, all your weight on the back leg, your toe moving out. Now simply step out with that toe, okay? Just like this right here. Right there, okay? Now this requires strength, I'm telling you. I've still got my weight back, okay? I've still got my weight back, I haven't fallen forward. Okay, now boy, it's real, I can feel it right up in here too. So it kind of gets you throughout your lower body. It gets you right in here. It gets you over here in the hips. This is why you need that strength. So this is a way you're going to be able to feel what keeping your weight back means, okay? The longer you can keep that weight back, the harder you're going to throw. Now, a good drill that you can use is you can simply work on getting in this position, and just remember something: when your arm goes back, your weight goes back, okay? And if you want to get your weight back, what do you have to do? You got to get some knee flexion. Now, don't get into the habit or think that keeping your weight back happens right here. This is sandwiching your body, okay? That's prematurely flexing your posting leg. You don't want to do it then. Stay tall up to that point. Stay tall right up to here. Whoop. Working on my balance. But stay tall, okay, right to here. Then when you come down, then there's where you get your knee flexion at that point, okay? Now see what's happening? I'm breaking my hands as my lead foot goes out and my weight goes back. So if you want to teach a young pitcher what it means to get his weight back, simply get him in this position and just work on, okay, arm goes back, weight goes back, okay? Arm goes back, weight goes back. Arm goes back, weight goes back. How do we get the weight back? I get the weight back by getting some good knee flexion. There's a technique you can use, and I recently saw this on a video. I can't remember the fellow's name, but he's the pitching coach at Texas A&M, and he had a great video. And one of the things he teaches, it's a way to keep your weight back. He teaches go knee to knee, just like this right here, so that when you come down, it's kind of this action right here. It's kind of like this. This knee comes toward this knee. This is a way to help you to keep your weight back. But I think an easier way to think about it is, just remember, when your leg starts down and your lead leg moves out, at that point, there's when you want to get that knee flexion right there. Then you're going to be in that power position. You can do a drill, and I want to show you this drill. All you have to do is work on just shifting yourself back. You know, this action right here. And again, you can get your team, you can get all the pitchers to be working on this when they're throwing to each other, okay? Get the shift, here's the weight back, boom, now they can throw. Start them just like this. Weight back, now throw. But notice what happens. Notice what happens when you get that weight back. When the weight is back, it's gonna make it easier for you to generate power in your lower body, to be able to pull that back leg off the rubber. So again, you want to work and drill on keeping your weight back. You've got to make sure that you keep your chin over the ball of your foot, and as the leg comes down, okay, it's going to be right here, the leg comes down, you break, here's your weight back right here, your weight's back, and now you're going to go forward, and you're going to be in this good power position right here. If you don't transfer your weight well, you're going to be out here, too far forward, and that's what I see in a lot of young pitchers, rather than being right here. Your weight's back, closer, actually in the center of your body, or slightly back right here. So, if there's one thing that you want to learn how to do to generate power, this is it right here. Keeping your weight back, having good weight distribution, and you can drill this, and what I'd recommend you do during the off season, spend some time and then go ahead and videotape yourself to make sure that when you get in that good landing position, you've still got some weight back. Okay, let's go to the next area that I want to talk about to get you toward a better delivery. Okay, the next area we're going to talk about is something that you don't hear very much about, but it's really important. That's called lead leg action. Okay, there's lead arm action and there's lead leg action. I see that a lot of pitchers get into trouble because of their lead leg action. And lead leg action is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, something we just talked about a minute ago, good weight distribution. Okay? How you use the lead leg so that you keep your weight back and you're in a good power position when you land. And the other real important part of lead leg action is having good body alignment, making sure that you get to a proper landing every time. So I'm going to show you the proper lead leg action and some of the things that I see in pitchers that cause some problems. Now, as I've said before, pitchers can lift their leg up. Okay, you want to make sure that you keep your weight over your posting, rather over the ball of your foot. You lift your leg up. It's okay to have your foot out here, a little bit out in front of your knee. But the important thing is that before you start forward, that you make the adjustment so that this foot, if it's out here, you're still in a good balanced position. You want to make sure that this foot comes in, it is under the knee before you start moving forward. Remember, we got the railroad track here. We're trying to work our body along this track, okay? We're trying to get the body going on the railroad track between second base and home plate. So we want to make sure that we lift the leg up, let it down, and then lead with the side of our foot. So it's up, down, and now it's out, moving along that midline. The other thing that's important about lead leg action is you want to make sure that you're getting this foot leading before your knee. Sometimes what I'll see is I'll see a pitcher who will lead with the hip, but the problem is his foot is lagging behind and it's leading with his hip right here. The problem right here is he may end up at the end getting this hip open too quick. So you want to make sure that the proper lead leg action is you want to lift the leg up, it's up, down, and then it's out, just like that. Okay? It's up, down, and out, instead of out and down. I see a lot of pitchers who will lift the leg up. It's up. Now it's out and down. The problem there is they're going to end up landing on the heel. They're going to end up with throwing over a stiff front leg. If they land on the heel, they're going to end up opening up that front side a little bit too quick. So make sure that you get the foot under the knee before you start forward, and make sure the foot is in front of the knee when you start to move out. And let me show you that from the side again. Okay, it's going to be lift the leg up. Okay, it's going to be up, and then it's going to be down. And where's the foot? The foot is leading in front of the knee, and that's what's going to get the hip going. It's right there. So remember, it's up, down, and out. Real important part of the delivery, something that's really not talked enough about. Let's go on to the next step. Okay, the next area we're going to talk about is something that I'm sure everybody thinks they know everything about, and that's your balance. Everybody talks about hit your balance point. You hit your balance point, everything's going to be okay. I disagree with that, because I think what you need to do is explain to a pitcher, if you're working with a pitcher, he's got to understand that you can hit your balance point, be completely balanced, not falling forward at all, but if you've got your weight over your heel, you're going to be in big trouble when you get to your landing position. What else happens if you don't keep your weight distributed over the ball of your foot. Now, we can lift the leg up to balance and be balanced right here. Okay? Now, where's my weight? My weight right now is over my heel. Am I balanced? I'm balanced. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that if the weight gets shifted back over the heel, as you start forward and go toward landing, what you're going to notice about a pitcher is two problems occur. One is he's going to be one of those guys that he's going to be over here. You're going to notice he's going to have his back is going to be prematurely arched right here. And he's going to be falling off, in the case of a right hand, off toward first base. I see a guy doing that. I want to go right back to the balance point, and I want to make sure that he understands about keeping his weight over the ball of his foot, not shifting it back to his heel. The other real important point is, if you don't keep the weight over the ball of the foot, when you land, if the weight has been on the heel going to landing, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to do something that we've talked about. You're not going to be able to, squish the bug. You can't squish the bug if the weight's on your heel. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a tough time releasing your backside. So if you notice a pitcher in video, you watch a pitcher in videotape. Let me do this from the side. If you see a pitcher on videotape and he gets out here to his landing and this back foot can't rotate over quick enough, that's going to tell me he's got a problem right back here with his balance. He's got his weight too far back on the heel. He's not going to be able to. What you're going to notice is this is going to happen right here, and then he's going to have a dead, what we call a dead backside. That's so easily fixed. Go ahead and you can stick a 2x4, stick a towel under his heel, and make sure that he has the chin over the belt buckle as he goes toward landing. Okay? So when he gets to his balance point, his chin is where? Over here. Okay? He's not. This is what you don't want to see. You don't want to see a pitcher shift back right here. He's going to have problems going forward. You're going to notice this little shift right here. This just little shift forward keeps the weight over the ball of the foot. Then you can move out, getting everything going toward home plate. It's real important. So when you move out to balance, when you move out to your landing, the weight's got to be over the ball of the foot. The foot is under the knee. Just lean forward. The other thing you want to think about when you're talking about balance and body control, keep the head still. Okay? Watch that head. Where's that head going? That head flying over here again? Okay? It tells me to go back here. He's got a problem right back here with his balance point. Okay? You want that head going right toward home plate. Try to keep the eyes level and the head level. We call it keeping the head quiet. We don't want the head jerking off. Where the head goes, the body's going to follow, so keep that head quiet. Okay, let's talk now about at what point in our delivery we go ahead and begin hip and trunk rotation. Everybody wants to know, how do you rotate the hip? How do you get the hip around to the front? Well, the first part of that, and it happens before hip and trunk rotation, is, again, being able to make sure that you get this ankle rolled over and you get yourself square to the plate at the right time. Okay, this is a power position. This is a power position when we get to right here. The only way we're going to get our body square to the plate in time is by rolling that ankle over. So you can do a drill simply just rolling the back ankle over, getting around to the front. This is the beginning of hip and trunk rotation. You can't rotate the hip unless you get this back foot, get the back ankle rolled over, in time, and it's got to happen fairly quickly. What I recommend you do is, if you taped any of the World Series, if you taped any Major League games this year, go back and just watch the pitchers. Watch at what point in their delivery they get that back ankle rolled over. Nobody ever looks at that back ankle rolling over. We're all looking at, you know, the pitcher going to release. We're all looking to see, how did he get that hip rotated? This is the thing you want to watch for. Watch a guy like Mark Wohlers, and you'll notice, boy, before he gets to landing, that ankle is up. Okay, it's right up about there, and then he gets it rolled over at the right time, so boom, he can force that hip around. So releasing the hip is the first part of hip and trunk rotation. That's what you've got to do, okay? You've got to teach the pitcher how to squish the bug right here, just the way the hitter has to squish the bug. You know, you can take a hitter out on the mound, and basically he does basically the same thing that a pitcher does, okay? He's in that, you see pitchers hit, do you see hitters hit off their front foot? Not too many, not too many. You know, there's a power position. They don't teach hitting like this. It's right here. How do they get the hips around? Boom. They got to squish the bug or release the backside. It's the same thing. It's so, there's so much about pitching and hitting that are alike. It's incredible. Now, how do you get pitchers to really understand what it feels like to release the hips and force the hip around to the side? You can take a pitcher, take your pitchers, get them out there, line them up. And if they're out there throwing, simply have them exaggerate it and do this. They can just throw just like this. Okay? So that they're releasing the hip. And they're making sure it happens early, because releasing the hip, getting the hip around to the front happens before ball release. Okay? So boom, when they're out there playing catch, have them exaggerate it and pull that hip around to the front. We talk about the hip and trunk rotation. You know, Bill Thurston, the Amherst College coach, when I first read his stuff, he talked about back knee drive. Well, that's kind of a way to think about it, because it looks like your back knee's coming off the rubber, but actually what's happening is you're using your hip flexors, you're using your back hip to get around to the front, and of course, when you pull the back hip around, the knee's going to come forward also. So you're really rotating your hips, which actually pulls the knee forward. And that gives you that extra zip on your fastball. There's the thing you want to watch for. Is that pitcher coming off that rubber at the right time? You know, is it that kind of action where he's coming off before he releases the ball? So get him in that position so he can see what he's doing. I encourage you to videotape these pitchers so they know exactly what they're doing in each area of the delivery. Okay, let's talk about the handbrake. You know, when do you break the hands? How do you break the hands? How do you drill on the handbrake? Something I've learned over the past couple of years is a lot of different ways that you can work on handbrake. First of all, you handbrake. Most pitchers actually break their hands much too late. The reason we want to break the hands early is we want to make sure that we get up into this position. If you notice that your pitcher is not getting up into this position, it may be because he's breaking his hands too late. You know, he's getting out to landing too soon. His arm's got to catch up. So most young pitchers, what I'd recommend you do is have them break their hands early. And actually you can have them break their hands almost as their leg is still going up, and right there get them to break their hands. But the quicker you break the hands, the better off you're going to be. I know I've seen articles where one of the things that Maddux works on all the time is his handbrake. Okay, he wants to make sure that he breaks his hands early. A friend of mine, Scott Merrill, was in Baltimore at the beginning of the year. He was actually in the dugout the day before the first game of the Orioles, and Mike Mussina was out in the outfield, and he was just working some flat ground work. And you know, Scott said he was just doing the same thing. He was just working on this the whole time, and when Mike came in and he sat in the dugout with Scott, Scott asked him what he was working on. He said, "I'm working on breaking my hands early." Why do you want to break your hands early? Everything we do in mechanics is about being consistent. The quicker and the more consistent we can get to this position right here, when our front foot plants, this is going to help us throw in that good downward angle more consistently. We're going to be able to throw harder with better control. So remember when your handbrake is going to happen. Your handbrake is going to happen when your lead leg starts down. You want to brake right here and get up in that high cock position so that when you land, you're ready to throw the ball. Make sure, you know, one of the faults you'll see is pitchers don't keep their fingers on top and the thumb underneath. Don't let the pitcher get his fingers on the side of the ball. Okay, when you break your hands, okay, you want to make sure the ball is in the glove in this position. Fingers on top, thumb underneath, not here. So we want to be here so when we come out, it's this kind of action out of the glove. It's this kind of action out of the glove. Real important. The other thing about a good handbrake, we want to make sure that we got good alignment. Again, we're working along that track, the railroad track that runs from the ball of the foot right to home plate. Remember, we're working on this track right here. There's your good arm alignment. We don't want to be over here off track. So make sure that the pitcher breaks his hands early and consistently at the same point in his body, midway right here. That's going to get him to this position at the right time. So your handbrake, again, it's going to be, remember, it's right here. It's this action. It's right there. Break the hands early. Break the hands when the leg goes down, the arm goes up, the weight goes back, we go to a landing. Okay, one of the things I want to talk to you about is the slide step. I'm kind of opposed to the typical slide step because one of the things I've noticed is that pitchers are so concerned about how quickly they get that ball released to the plate. They're rushing their motion, they're losing velocity, they're putting more stress on their arm. So I think there's a better way to work on the slide step, and there's a slide step that you can work on that's called the modified slide step. And the modified slide step is a way that you can still have a good quick delivery to the plate, but it makes you keep your weight back so that you've still got some power and that you're not putting a lot of stress on the arm. The slide step, what I'm seeing is pitchers are getting in this position right here, and then it's the first movement is right there forward. They're getting no power at all in their delivery. By simply getting out in this position right here, by simply pulling this knee back, again we can go back to what the Texas A&M coach talked about, as far as he talked about when you're shifting your weight, you can go knee to knee. This is another way to think about that. You can pull this knee back to this knee, and that's going to help you just get your weight over that back leg momentarily enough so you got some power. All you want to be able to do is make sure, you know, you shift the weight back right here, okay? You shift and then break, okay? So that weight goes back, the ball goes up, okay? So it's right here. Just pull this back right here just a little bit, So when you brake, you want to pull. Now, something else you can do that's going to help you keep your weight back, and that is you can get a little bit of knee flexion earlier. So you go into your stretch, okay, and get a little bit of knee flexion right here. Why? Well, if you go back and you listen to what I said about keeping your weight back, if you got some knee flexion, now you get your weight back automatically. Your weight is already back. You get a little bit of knee flexion, so you can go into your you can go into your stretch. Okay, now I got my weight back on my back leg. I'm throwing from a power position right now. Okay, my weight's already back. I don't have to worry about shifting it back. Now I can go, and then I can throw with some power, and I'm not putting all that stress on my arm. So work on that modified slide step, where you can simply get your weight back on the back leg. Now you got it back. Now just shift and go. And you'll still be able to throw the ball in there so the catcher has time to throw the hitter out. Real important. Okay, the question is, after we've gone through all of this on mechanics, a question I get asked a lot, as a matter of fact, this morning, just before I left to come down and do this shooting, I got a phone call, and it was a dad of a high school pitcher. Boy's 18 years old, 6 feet, 275 pounds, throwing 85 miles an hour. Does anybody want to guess what that dad asked me? He asked me the typical question that I get asked 10 times a week, maybe 20 times a week. How do I add another 5 miles an hour to my son's fastball? And I said, no problem. I really didn't say no problem, because there are so many ingredients to increasing velocity, you can't automatically say to somebody, yeah, I can give you an extra 3 to 5 miles in your fastball. What are the areas you have to work on? Well, if I were to start, the big areas I would work on first would be, number one, work on your mechanics, okay? Get your mechanics rock solid. The areas that we've talked about in these videos, the mechanical faults, you've got to fix the mechanical faults. Okay, so work on your mechanics. Get your mechanics rock solid, and you'll never be finished working on your mechanics, ever. Major league pitchers get their mechanics off track all the time. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you read any of the baseball magazines, but I see it all the time and I hear about it all the time. A pitcher is throwing 96 miles an hour, all of a sudden he's down to 91, 92. I know that happened this year to Jose Mesa with the Cleveland Indians. There's a guy who's throwing consistently 96 to 98. All of a sudden he's down at 92. So you can not only lose velocity because of your mechanics, but you can increase your velocity because of your mechanics too. So you've got to work on keeping your mechanics consistent. You've got to know what good mechanics are. And that's why I say to everybody, you say, well, boy, how do you work the program? I say, well, the first thing you do is you videotape your pitcher, and then you start working on finding those mechanical faults, the things that he's not doing. He's not breaking his hands at the right time. He's not keeping his weight back. He's opening up too early. You've got to keep working on this stuff day in and day out. You've all heard the story, and maybe some of you haven't heard the story about Mark Wohlers, and you know, Mark, 6'4", now he's probably about 230 pounds, 225. I think out of high school, Mark was about 6'4", and he was still a pretty good sized guy then, 200, 205 pounds, throwing 83 miles an hour out of high school. The Braves obviously saw some good arm strength in Mark. They liked his arm, and they thought that over time, that if he fixed his mechanics, he'd be able to throw harder. What happened? Went from 83 to now Mark is consistently in the upper 90s. I've seen him throw 102, 103 miles an hour. Did that happen overnight? Actually, it happened, it took about 2 off seasons for Mark to fix his mechanics. And he worked with Bill Thurston doing that. It took him a couple of years, a couple of off seasons before he really got it. So this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes you can fix one thing and boy, you can make a big difference. Sometimes you can work on getting that back hip rotated so you get good hip and trunk rotation. Sometimes that can add that 3 miles an hour in the fastball. So mechanics, you've got to work on your mechanics. You've got to throw. You've got to throw on a regular basis. You've got to keep the arm strength up. What happened to Tom Glavine over the last couple of years? Lee Mazzoni got him going on his throwing program where they throw every day. They're not, long tossing every day, but they're throwing every day. They're keeping their arm strong. The more you throw, the stronger your arm is going to be. So get yourself on a regular throwing program. If you've got a little leaguer, get him out there throwing the ball. You can't go out and throw the ball once a week. You can't throw 1 or 2 bullpens a week and think you're going to develop a strong arm. If it's off season for you, figure out a way to throw at least 2 times a week, preferably 3. You have to go down in your basement, set up a mattress, set up a net in your garage, or be like one of my students up in Michigan, Andrew Good. Andrew Good's dad, Richard, what did he do? He put a net up between the doorway between Richard's bedroom and the outside hallway. Put 5 hooks up, and what does Andrew do? Andrew is a junior right now. Andrew throws into that net 3 times a week. I wonder if that's why Andrew Good's throwing 85 plus right now as a high school junior. Probably going to end up throwing a little bit harder. I just got a nice letter from faxed to me from his dad. The letterhead said, Los Angeles Dodgers. They're scouting Andrew right now. He's one of the top pitchers in Michigan. Got snow on the ground a lot of times during the year, but what's he doing? He's up there throwing the ball into the net. Andrew wants to be a better pitcher, so you got to throw. And the other thing you've got to work on is you've got to work on conditioning. I continue to say you don't get velocity in the weight room. You don't get velocity in the weight room. But you've got to work, as I've said, from this area of the body down. Pitchers need to work those areas. That's why we did the conditioning videos, to show you what real strength and conditioning is all about. It's okay to go into the weight room and work and do lunges and do squats, get the lower body strong. Do abs, do the medicine ball, do the plyometrics, the explosive running and jumping drills. Because just as I've shown you, you need to have a well-conditioned body in order to move your body through space as a pitcher. Just to stand out there on the mound for 50 or 100 pitches requires you have strong legs. If your legs weaken up too early, then what's going to happen? You're going to break down sooner. So work on conditioning, okay? As far as upper body goes, do your lightweight dumbbells, okay? Do the cord, do the explosive medicine ball workout for the upper body, and work on having a well-conditioned body. That's what it's all about. So those are the 3 areas. You want to throw 3 to 5 miles an hour harder? Work on those 3 areas. Better mechanics, a good, solid year-round throwing program, and get yourself in top condition. But make sure you don't lose flexibility by doing heavy weights in the upper body. Work the lower body. Okay, so we talked about velocity. Just remember something, there is no magic in terms of how you can increase your velocity. It's a combination of a lot of things. Now what about control? If you want to get good control, what are you supposed to do? Go out in the bullpen and throw bullpens endlessly. And boy, if I throw bullpens a lot, I'm going to have good control. Boy, if I concentrate on throwing to that target, I'm going to have good control. Is that the way you get good control, by going out and throwing in the bullpen? I don't think so. I remember a dad telling me that his son was going to have good control because, boy, he was out there throwing a lot of bullpens. What if you're throwing those bullpens with lousy mechanics? What if you're getting in the wrong position? What if you're opening up too early? What if you're not getting in the high cock position? You're putting stress on your arm. If you want good control, you fix your mechanics. Control comes not from experience necessarily. Control comes when you fix your mechanics. When you become consistent with your mechanics, good control will automatically follow. And some of the things that you're going to notice that we have with control problems, okay? Why do pitchers throw high in the strike zone? Number one reason, they rush their motion, okay? They get their body out ahead of their arm, and they're actually throwing uphill. Okay, the elbow tends to drop and they're throwing uphill. There's one reason. Or they're not getting in the high cock position at the right time. They're going to throw the ball high in the strike zone. It's got nothing to do with not bending their back, okay, or where the release is. It's a function of what I just talked about. Rushing the motion and not getting up in the right position at the right time. What about throwing the ball too low? Okay, throw the ball too low, pitchers tend to rush with their upper body. That's going to get the ball down. They're not striding out enough. If you overstride, you're going to throw the ball high. What about the ball that's consistently, you got a pitcher who's throwing the ball inside all the time. He's throwing the ball inside. What's he doing? He's throwing across his body, okay? He's landing too far across the midline. He can't get around, so okay, he's leaving the ball inside. You want to get the ball to the outside part of the plate, make sure that pitcher is getting his back hip around to the front, good hip and trunk rotation. When I'm working with a pitcher, if you can't get the ball to the outside, say get the back hip around. Get the back hip around so you can finish out over that front knee. So mechanics, more velocity, better control. Work on good body and good balance. Work on good loose arm action. Work on staying compact. Slow things down. Work your mechanics in slow motion. And work the drills and work each phase of the delivery step by step. Build a strong foundation in mechanics. And that's when your pitching is really going to take off. Good luck.